the Lord, my beautiful blessed souls. We are losing up again. Back here with another word today on Tuesday, June 9th. Yes, I have been on my little days off and tried to get me some rest, but I'm back. Here we're talking about refreshing others. The last one was refreshing body. I'm going to read it and we're going to get into Judges chapter 16, which is Samson and Delilah. It says, how can I refresh others? You can refresh others by being there for them by acts of kindness, large and small, and by carefully chosen words that bring encouragement and joy. Sometimes a smile or a random act of kindness can turn someone's day from bad to beautiful. 2 Timothy 1:16, may the Lord show special kindness to Cephalus and all his family because he often visited and encouraged me. He was never ashamed of me because I was in prison. Philemon 1:7, I myself gained much joy and comfort from your love, my brother, because your kindness has so often refreshed the hearts of God's people. Isaiah 50:4, the sovereign Lord has given me his words of wisdom so that I know what to say in all these weary ones. Proverbs 18:4, a person's words can be life-giving water. Words of true wisdom are as refreshing as a bubbling brook. So I'm going to show you this because I just want you to see it. And we're going to get into it. And refreshing others is something that is a beautiful thing to do. It can be challenging because a lot of times the same people that you're called to refresh will be the same ones that we will have to go through the most with. But we are going to get into it in Judges chapter 16 and we're going to see how this works. Okay, Judges chapter 16. Samson went to Gaza and there he saw a prostitute and he went into her. That means had sex with her. Now, the Gazites were told Samson has come here, and they surrounded the place and set an ambush for him all night at the gate of the city. They kept quiet all night, saying, let us wait till the light of the morning, then we will kill him. But Samson lay till midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the gates, of the city in two posts, and he pulled them up, bar and all, and put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that is in front of the Hebron. Yeah, you was already here, right? Okay. You was already here, right, earlier? Okay. After this, he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistine came up to her and said to her, seduce him and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him, and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you. Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. Then the lords of the Philistine brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner chamber. And she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped bowstrings as a thread of flax snaps when it touches the fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to him, Samson, behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound. And he said to her, if they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So Delilah took ropes and bound him with them and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson, and the men lying in ambush were in the inner chamber. But he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me now how you might be bound. And he said to her, if you have 7 locks of my head with the web fastened tight with the pin, then I shall become weak like any other man. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wove them into the web. And she made them tight with the pin and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin, the loom, and the web. 1 second. know if you could hear me, but I wanted to make sure because that fan was kind of loud. So when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up again, for he has told me all his heart." Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her, brought the money in their hands. She made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of hair. Then began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And he awoke from his sleep and said, "I will go as at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground at the mill in prison. But the hair of the head began to grow again, and after it had been shaved. So now the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their God, and to rejoice. And they said, "Our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hands." And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our community and our country, who has killed many of us." And when their hearts were merry, they said, "Call Samson, that he may entertain us." Call Samson that he may entertain us. Excuse me about that. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the young man who held him by the hand, "Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them." Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. On the roof there was about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson entertained. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, "O Lord God, please remember me and please strengthen me only this once, O God, that I might be avenged on the Philistines for my eyes." And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars which the house rested, and he leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. And Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines," then bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those whom he had killed during his life. Then his brothers and all his family came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah, his father. He had judged Israel 20 years. So this is a story, and when we look at it, we see Delilah. We see all of the things that he was telling. We have to be careful because we can give people and let them know what our weakness and strengths are, and they'll use that against us. So we have to be careful of the people who we are around. But in this case, Samson had seen this several times with her, and there's several things he was doing. One, he was sleeping with prostitutes. He was living in sin. He was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. And so, when you do that, God ended up leaving him, meaning the spirit that gave him all of his power left him, and that was a problem. Now, the previous chapter ended with a summary statement: Samson judged Israel for 20 years. Now, only a few notable incidents, in Samson's life are recorded. That says a lot. And none are tied to specific dates. We're not exactly told when his tenure began, nor do we know how much time passes between the victory over the Philistines in the army and his arrival in Gaza. Pay attention to that, because a lot of times we only see highlights. We don't see people's whole lives, because even in the word, we only see the highlights. We don't see the regular days, the lowlights. So we need to pay attention to that. It's clear Samson is still living for himself and not according to the commands of the Lord. No reason is given for him to be in Gaza. I mean, he's there to do mischief. He's there to be sleeping with prostitutes. This is the southernmost of the Philistines' 5 major cities. Perhaps he was on a mission. Perhaps he planned to move through quietly, assume he would not be recognized. But while there he goes to a prostitute, someone in Gaza recognizes him. So the local men prepare an ambush, and they expect him to leave in the morning. And they think they can corner him at the locked city gates. Instead, Samson leaves the prostitute at midnight, rips the entire gate structure out of the ground, and walks away with it. He carries the gate some distance away, dropping it on the top of the hill. This not only leaves the city exposed and vulnerable, but it is also deeply humiliating act. A city's gates were centers of commerce and the main point of defense. To capture the gates of an enemy was to be in total control. While Israel is subjugated, Samson is openly insulting the Philistine nations who rule the region. What happens next is introduced with deep foreshadowing. The Valley of Sorek is named after the variety of grapes. Samson, the Nazarite vow, was supposed to keep him from all grape products. The woman he falls for is referred to as Delilah. This might imply weakness in contrast to Samson's great strength. A name can mean night. In connection to night may be foreshadow the results of a relationship, which is literally blindness. Unlike the previous woman Samson saw, this is a woman whom he loves. The lords of the 5 Philistine cities hear about this and spot an opportunity. They offer Delilah the modern equivalent of $1 million. Her mission is to seduce Samson into telling the secret of his supernatural strength. So she agrees. Delilah is not subtle, and yet she is extremely clever. Rather than trying to disguise her quest, she hides it in plain sight. She simply asks Samson how someone could subdue him. In the context of two lovers, such a blunt series of questions could seem more sincere than suspicious. And yet one would expect Samson to suspect something, yet he can't resist playing her game. At first he lies, telling her he can be subdued with fresh bowstrings, the undried tendons or sinews of animals. Delilah tries just that with men waiting in ambush, only to find Samson is as strong as ever. This begins several repetitions of the same basic pattern. Delilah acts hurts and betrayed, claiming that Samson is teasing her with his lie. This is manipulation, this is lies, this is deceit. This is all these things that you see all the time in people that mean us no good. And he's literally flirting with them. So each time she attacks and the lies, she tries this method and can be impressed with his strength. Over time, this probably lulls Samson into false sense of security. In his mind, her attempts are cries of warning, where a game not attempts to hurt him. Delilah tries using new ropes, but those don't work either. See, this is sleeping with the enemy at his finest. That Samson is growing less suspicious and more trusting is shown in the next lie involving his head that ends with the usual results, but it's a dangerous move. The actual secret of Samson's strength is his uncut hair, the only explicit requirement given to him before his birth. Delilah's flirting and teasing turns manipulation. The question is his love and makes him sick at heart until he finally gives in. Trying to prove his love, Samson tells her the truth. If his hair is cut, he'll be as weak as anyone else. Samson assumes Delilah loves him. He probably thought that when she tried tying him up before, she was simply teasing and playing the game, but those attempts were relatively tame. Remember, people are playing with you and they're not. Tying him or weaving his hair. Samson assumes someone who loves him won't go as far as to shave his head. Perhaps he's right, but Delilah isn't acting in love. Now that she knows she's opened his deepest secrets and his deepest heart up, she calls for her patrons to send them in for payment. She lulls Samson to sleep and possibly making him drunk or using drugs so he won't know that this head is being shaved. As before, Delilah calls out a warning. As before, Samson wakes up and attempts to free himself. This time, however, it's not a game or a joke. Too late, Samson realizes his hair is gone, that Delilah was lying and that he's been captured for real. The hiding men spring out and maim Samson, taking his eyes, and he's bound with heavy metal shackles and enslaved in a Philistine prison. Samson's hair is not a magical substance that grants him strength. No, rather it's an outward sign of his commitment to obey God. While Samson's life was filled with blatant disobedience, this is a line he had not yet crossed. By telling his secret to a woman he never should have trusted, let alone slept with, Samson might as well have shaved his own head. He's violated his purpose and God takes away his strength. And yet, perhaps because of his experience, Samson's faith begins to heal and mature, symbolized by his slowly regrowing hair. The Philistines hold a huge celebration to honor their god Dagon. They see this as a victory of their deity over the God of Israel. Thousands of noblemen crowd into the temple. It's what's likely a drunken, foolish choice. Samson is brought out of the jail to be put on display, showing a new sense of humility. Samson prays for one more burst of strength. Then he strains against the pillars holding up the entire building. God grants his request, and at the temple collapsing, killing Samson along with the innumerable Philistine leaders. God's purpose for Samson was to disrupt the Philistines' comfortable, secure, and control over Israel. The chaos Samson spread during his life certainly spread fear. In death, however, he does more to shatter Philistine oppressions than he did in his entire life. That his family can so readily come and bury him suggests that the local power structure has been completely scrambled. Later men such as Samuel will complete the liberation. For now, this catastrophe ends. The 20-year tenure of one of the Old Testament's most complicated figures. Samson is the last pure judge of Israel in this era. Samuel will bridge the transition from judges to prophets as Israel moves towards a monarchy. In the meantime, Israel will continue to live in spiritual chaos and sin, disregarding the will of God. The events which close out the book of Judges highlight the tragic, disturbing results of that rejection. Okay, we're going to look into some of this and we're going to get into it. There's a lot going on, as we can see. Samson's name is, we have observed before, signifies a little sun, soul, purpose. We have seen this sun rising very bright, and his morning rays strong and clear, and nothing appeared to the contrary. We take it for granted that the middle of the day is proportionately illustrious. While he judged Israel 20 years, but the melancholy story of this chapter gives us such an account of his evening, and as it did not commend his day. This little sun set under a cloud, and yet just the setting darted forth once such strong and glorious beam as it made him even then a type of Christ conquering by death. Here is Samson greatly endangered by his familiarity with one harlot and hardly escaping. Samson quite ruined by his familiarity with another harlot, Delilah. Observe one how he was betrayed by her his own lust. How he was betrayed by her own his sworn enemies, the Philistines, who one by her means got out of him at last what his great strength lay. Then robbed him of his strength by taking from him his head, his crown of separation. Then seized him, blinded him, imprisoned him, and abused him. And solemn festival made a show of him. But lastly he avenged himself of them by pulling down the theater upon their heads, and so dying with them. Now, when we look at this says a lot to me when it comes to men and women relationships, when it comes to a lot of different things, because a lot of times, we let people, places, and things run us and rule us. We a lot when it comes to relationships. But we're going to get into this. We're going to break it down, and we're going to see what exactly was going on, and we want to see ourselves in this story. This story was quite, something for me. It has been, stirring at me for the past couple of days in its entirety, just talking about what actually goes on. So let's break it down. Judges chapter 16. Judges 16 focuses on the final phase of Samson's life, showing both his weakness and God's continued purpose for him. Now, key events. Samson in Gaza. Samson visited a prostitute in Gaza. The Philistines tried to trap him overnight. Samson escapes by tearing off the city gates and carrying them away, demonstrating his supernatural strength. Now, remember, leaving that city exposed. Samson falls in love with Delilah in the valley of Sorek. Philistine leaders bribe her to discover the secret of his strength. Samson deceives her 3 times, but eventually reveals the truth. His strength comes from his Nazarite vow, symbolized by his uncut hair. Delilah betrays him. His hair is cut, and his strength leaves him because the Lord departs from him. Samson captured and humiliated. Now remember, that's an altar covenant contract. So it was not the hair itself. It's just what it symbolizes, the oath. Samson captured and humiliated. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and imprisoned him. He is forced to grind grain and later made to entertain the Philistine crowd. Meanwhile, his hair begins to grow back. See, this is humiliation. So a lot of times, this is what this is about. They wanted to capture him. They wanted to seize him. They wanted to humiliate him. They wanted to find every reason, whether he did anything to them or not, to do something to him. And we see this a lot of times. Doesn't matter where we are in life. It could be with our family, friends. It could be with other ones, co-workers, whatever. Now, Samson's final prayer in death. Samson prays to God for strength one last time. He pushes down the pillars of the temple Dagon. The building collapses, killing Samson and thousands of Philistines. He kills more in his death than his life, ironically. His family retrieves his body and buries him. Now, we're going to look at it. It's weakness through moral compromise. Samson's downfall comes through desire and secrecy. Yes. God's mercy despite failure. God answers Samson's final prayer. Consequences of disobedience, loss of strength, capture of suffering. Redemption at the end. Samson's last act fulfills God's purpose. Now, when we look at loss of strength and capture and suffering, that's the consequences of disobedience. Now, we look at that and we see how God allows these things to happen because of the disobedience. That's why they always say obedience is better than sacrifice. Now, spiritual lineage is Samson as part of God's deliverer line. Now, Samson is one of the judges raised by God to deliver Israel. He belongs to a spiritual lineage of leaders like Deborah, Gideon, used by God despite flaws. Now, the Nazarite identity, Samson's strength is tied to the Nazarite vow from birth. His uncut hair represents consecration to God. His downfall shows breaking spiritual commitment leads to loss of power. Outward signs matter only when the heart is aligned with God. And also, we got to think about that's the moving away from God, and slowly but surely, and he's not paying it any mind. That's why he didn't even realize what was going on to the last minute. Foreshadowing Christ's spiritual palette, Samson's life contains symbolic parallels, often noted in spiritual interpretation. Betrayal for silver, just like Jesus. Judas did that. Handed over to the enemies. Same way. Dies with arms outstretched to defeat enemies. His death brings victory. However, Samson is flawed and impulsive. Christ is perfect and obedient. So Samson is seen as an imperfect type pointing towards a greater deliverer, which is Christ. The moral and spiritual legacy. Spiritual strength comes from relationship with God, not physical ability. God can still use a person even after failure when they repent. Remember, when they repent. A warning against spiritual complacency, wrong relationships, and revealing sacred commitments carelessly. Our simple takeaway, Judges 16 shows that God's calling can be weakened by compromise, but his purpose can still be fulfilled through repentance and faith, even at the end. So now I wanted to break it down, and we're going to look at these symbolic things. Now, people in Judges 16, meaning sun brightness, Samson, he was meant to shine for God. Mentally, he was strong but careless thinking. He lacks discipline and discernment. Physically, extraordinarily strength, but ultimately vulnerable but disconnected from God. How do we feel about that? A lot of us are. Emotional, driven by desire, lust, attraction, and impulse. Now, I find this it reminds me of a lot of men, but it can be women as well, because women tend to have, which God gave us, the thing for our mates, longing for mates. Financial represents someone who can gain advantage but lacks wisdom and stewardship. Spiritually, he was a consecrated person, a Nazarite who drifts. He shows how calling equal consistent obedience. If not, it's going to be a problem. Lesson is gifted people can still fall if they don't guard their own inner life. Now, Delilah, we're going to break her down, meaning often associated with delicate or weak, but spiritually represents seduction. Mentally, she's cunning, manipulative, persistent, and pressure. Physically, she represents physical attraction used as a trap. Emotionally, she's emotionally manipulated. She's a betrayer of trust. Financially, she's motivated by money. She's paid to betray Samson. Spiritually, she's symbol of temptation that slowly wear down your commitment to God. Lesson, not all attachments are safe. Some drain your strength over time. Philistine leaders, meaning enemies of Israel, represent worldly opposition. This will be in any form. Mentally, they are strategic, observing weakness. Physically, they seek to overpower and control. Emotionally, they're driven by fear and revenge. Financially, they use money as a tool to manipulate. They pay Delilah. That's what they do. Spiritually, forces that oppose God's purpose in your life. Lesson, the enemy studies patterns of weakness and exploits them. And we see this throughout our entire lives. We only get hit in areas where we're weak, or the areas that we long for, have these contracts, these altars, covenants, contracts in our hearts and minds. These are the places where we worship other things besides God and put them in his place, put them before him. So when we look at this, we have to pay a lot of attention. It could be money, it could be fame, it could be any people, place, or thing. And it could be in any and every aspect. But as you can see, it's a pattern. It is a mental, strategic, observing weakness. It is a physical seeking to overpower and control. This is what it does. Emotionally, it's driven by fear and revenge. Whoever's doing it, financially, they'll use money as a tool to do whatever, to pay people that I mean, that's even up until witchcraft. Spiritually, it forces that oppose God's purpose in your life. Why? The lesson they want to study your patterns to weaken and exploit you, meaning to destroy you. Samson's family, end of chapter. Mental stability and grounding. Physically, they retrieve and bury him. Restoration of dignity. Emotionally, closure and care. Financially, not emphasized. Spiritually, it represents grace and belonging even after the failure. Now, places and judges, we're going to look at it. Gaza, a Philistine stronghold. That's what that is. It's mentally, it's entering places of poor judgment. Physically, it's a danger zone, enemy territory. Emotionally, it's seeking pleasure in wrong places. Financially, places where choices can cost you greatly. And spiritually, compromising zones where believers wander from purpose. Lessons where you go matters. And I find this with a lot of times with the chosen ones, because they are alone. They are caused to be alone by themselves. They probably feel, bored, whatever. And this is what I'm seeing, that I think has a lot to do with why they stray and go, to other ways at times. Not an excuse for them at all, but I see the pattern. Valerie of Sorek, where Delilah lived. Mentally, this is an area of gradual compromise, not immediate destruction. Physically, it appears harmless and attractive. Emotionally, it attachment and comfort zone. Financially, it's a hidden transactions, meaning betrayal for money. Spiritually, it represents slow erosion of your spiritual strength. The biggest fall happens gradually, not suddenly. You gotta pay attention to that. Prison and grinding house. So after Samson is captured, mentally, confusion, regret, loss of direction. Physically, is loss of strength, blindness, and bondage. We find this actually. Emotionally, it is shame and humiliation. Financially, it's forced labor, loss of control over your life. Consequences, spiritually, is of sin, loss of vision and purpose. Sin blinds, it binds, and reduces your potential. Now, Temple of Dagon. This is the Philistines' God's temple. What it represents mentally is a false belief system. What it represents physically is a place of destruction when it is misused. Emotionally, it is the pride of the enemy. Financially, it represents power structures and systems of influence. Spiritually, it is idolatry, anything that replaces God. The lesson in this is God will ultimately confront false power systems. Key symbolic elements: his hair, Samson's strength. Mentally is identity and awareness. Physically is a source of strength. Emotionally is confidence and personal security. Financially is authority and influence. Spiritual covenant with God, Nazarite vow. The meaning is not the hair itself, but the obedience and the dedication to God. His eyes, remember they gouged him out. Samson loses them. Mentally is a loss of vision and clarity, which he had already did. Physically is literal blindness, right? Emotionally is darkness and despair. Financially, it is an inability to navigate life effectively. Spiritually is spiritual blindness from disobedience. And the irony of it is Samson followed wrong desires. It ends up being unable to see. So, 3 is the gates of Gaza. He carries them away. Mentally is breaking through obstacles. Physically is supernatural strength. Emotionally is bold confidence. Financially is authority over systems. Spiritually is victory over barriers. The lesson here is God's power can break strongholds, but must be sustained by obedience. Pillars of the temple is the final act. Mentally, it is a collapse of false thinking. Physically, is it a structure, destruction. Emotionally is a final surrender. Financially is a collapse of corrupt systems. Spiritually is God's judgment and ultimate victory. The lesson in this is one act of surrender can realign destiny. Overall spiritual pattern: calling, compromise, capture, consequence, cry, comeback. Samson journey shows mentally drifting, thinking leads to poor decision. Physically, strength without discipline fails. Emotionally, uncontrolled desires bring downfall. Financially, bad alliances cost you. Spiritually, even after failure, God hears sincere repentance. The big takeaway of Judges 16 is not just history. It's a map of inner life. Samson equals your potential. Delilah equals your temptation. The Philistines equal your opposition. Your hair equals your spiritual discipline. The prison equals consequences, and the temple collapses equal redemption through surrender. Now, the core strength here is never in your talent, it's in your connection to God. So lose that and everything else follows. Restore that, and even your ending can have power. So when we look at that, we got to understand, because a lot of times we think that because people are spiritually gifted, that doesn't mean, because see, walking with God and walking in spirit is two different things. We could be walking with the Lord, but we may not be walking in the spirit. And then that is what, kind of messes things up. So we got to pay attention to that, because giftings are always given to us and they're going to be used regardless. Why? Because God freely gives them. But just because those things are there doesn't mean that people's lives are actually lined up and they're actually walking with the Lord, meaning in spirit and in truth. This is what true worship is. So we got to pay attention to these things. Why? Because he had the gifts, but he was not walking in them. That was the problem. Okay, so when we complete this life, God, we're going to look personal life, meaning Samson. When we look at Samson, we have strengths, we have gifts, we have purpose, but they must be managed. So we have to self-check ourselves. Mentally, do I ignore warning signs? Emotionally, am I driven by feelings instead of wisdom? Spiritually, am I consistent with God or only when I'm in trouble? Right? Action. Build daily discipline, prayer, reflection, and boundaries. Stop relying on natural strength alone. Relationships, Delilah and dynamic. What Delilah represents in our life: people who drain us slowly, people who test our boundaries repeatedly. Relationships tied to benefit and not love. A lot of that goes on here. Guys, relationships is different. Signs of a Delilah relationship: they keep asking for things you're uncomfortable sharing or giving. You feel weaker and not stronger after being around them. They prioritize gain, money, control, and advantage. Healthy relationship patterns: mentally, you feel clarity and not confusion. Emotionally, you feel peace and not pressure. Spiritually, you grow closer to God, not further. Action steps: set firm boundaries. Don't reveal your inner secrets, your dreams, your weaknesses, especially too quickly. Watch patterns and not words. In your career, work life, these are gates, these enemy systems. Samson carrying the gates equal your potential. You have the ability to break limitations, advance in tough environments, and handle responsibility. But career mistakes, Samson patterns, is being strong but undisciplined, relying on skill but ignoring character and God, letting distractions ruin opportunities. These stupid bugs. Oh my God. Excuse me. Workplace wisdom: mentally stay sharp and strategic. Physically avoid burnout. Emotionally don't let ego or impulses lead decisions. Financially don't trade long-term success for short-term pleasure. Spiritually stay grounded in purpose. Action steps: avoid Gaza places, meaning toxic work environments or bad decisions. To protect your reputation, Samson lost his. Stay consistent even when you feel strong. Financial applications: Philistines and silver. What happened? Delilah accepted money to betray Samson. Financial lessons: money can corrupt loyalty. Bad relationships can cost you everything. Short-term gain equals long-term loss. Financial wisdom: don't partner with people who lack integrity. Don't let money drive your values. Avoid situations where you're being used. Action steps: build financial decisions around values and not pressure. Watch who benefits from your downfall. Protect assets, time, energy, reputation, not just money. Mentally, emotionally, health, blindness, and bondage. Samson's downfall: he lost vision, eyes. He lost freedom, chains. He lost identity, grinding work. Modern equivalent: confusion, feeling stuck, and regret cycles. Loss of direction. Healing pattern: mental, reflect and learn from mistakes. Emotionally, release shame. Own it, but don't stay there. Spiritually, return to God honestly. Action steps: take time to pause and reset. Identify what caused you blindness. Build awareness so it doesn't repeat. Spiritual growth: the real core. Key truth from Judges: the Lord had left him, not permanently, but due to disconnection. Spiritual mistakes: assuming God's presence is automatic. That's one. Neglecting your commitment, ignoring gradual compromise. Spiritual comeback: Samson's final prayer. Even after failure, God listened, God restored his strength, and God fulfilled purpose. The spiritual growth path: 1. Connection, daily time with God, not just emergency prayers. 2. Consistency, small habits, big moments. Exactly. 3 is correction, be honest about where you fell or where you are. 4. Comeback, God can still use you powerfully. Life cycle from Judges 16. Negative cycles. 1. Gifts. 2. Temptation. 3. Compromise. 4. Weakness. 5. Loss. And 6. Bondage. Redemption cycles. 1 is awareness. Can't fix it if you don't know it's there. 2. Humility. 3 is prayer. 4 is strength restored. 5 is purpose fulfilled. Real life interrogation plans. Daily mental and spiritual. 10 to 15 minutes quiet reflection and prayer. Ask where am I getting weak. Weekly emotional and relational. Review your relationships. Ask who strengthens me versus who drains me. Monthly financial and career. Evaluate your decisions. Am I acting out of pressure or purpose or your feelings? Final powerful truth. Samson didn't fall in one moment. He fell small several times, small repeatedly. Compromises. He didn't regain strength instantly. He regained it through returning to God. Bottom line, protect your strength, guard your relationships, stay spiritually connected, and learn from mistakes, but don't stay stuck in them. So, I hope that this was a blessing to you guys. Hold on. I want to see. This stupid thing. Ooh. Okay. I wanted to look at. There'll be a lot of stuff I be wanting to look at. Okay. Okay. Now, when we look at these things, we want to be alert. We want to have a security mindset, ability to handle pressure, physical and mental endurance, and responsibility and trust roles. We want to look at ourselves. Our risk, we're being strong in our role, but vulnerable in personal decisions. And a lot of times we tend to do that. We always have strength and weakness areas. We have to pay attention to those areas, because in the areas that we're strong in, we need to pay attention so we build on them. But the areas we're weak in, we really need to pay attention to those, because those are the areas that get us each and every time. Those are the areas we got to work on. Our risk, just like Sam, being strong in the role, but vulnerable in our personal decisions. Our mental strategies, modern Delilahs mentally. And when we look at, God telling us about certain things, temptation and how to get away, whatever your temptation can be, because it could be more than just one thing. And we got to pay attention to those things as well. Why? Because, depending on if it's money, if it's fame, if it's, sex, human beings, if it's power, whatever it is, if it's pride, if it's ego, that can be a downfall. And when we look at our families and then, how these things affect us, when it points back, one, to the family dynamic. When we look at families and how they're torn apart, usually it's from what? Temptation. Either it's money, financial issues, or it's some type of mental, emotional situation. And usually it's some type of, either, if it's not, when people are cheating and stuff like that. But that's from temptation. So, these things are there. And when we look at them and we pick them apart, we can see when and where and how they fall into these categories and how they affect us. Because destroying the family unit, it is one of the main things that the enemy loves. Why? Because he doesn't like anything that God loves. He doesn't want marriage. He would rather people stay in infidelity or in adultery or in fornication. Why? Those relationships will last a long time. Why? Because he wants to show us that because, of us following God, he wants to make it look like his way is always better than God's way. And I think a lot of times we go through this when we look at stuff and we say, oh, well, we're not married, but then other people are, or they're living in shacking and they can live in shack for 15, 20 years. And they'll be fine. But the moment they get married, that's when things start to fall apart. Why? Because it's by design. Satan doesn't want you to do things God's way, the right way, because that's where the blessing is. Living in fornication, that's where the cursings are. He wants you to stay right there because it feels good. You feel like you do it. This is what this is about. And it's always in opposition to God. Now, our mental discipline plan, we got to check ourselves daily and ask, is this decision strengthening me or weakening me? At work, stay observant, not just physically, but mentally. Who's trustworthy? What feels off? And what problems can arise? Key shift, don't just react, anticipate. You got to be proactive and not reactive. Our relationship strategy, our possible Delilah types. These are the people who want access to us but don't respect us. They ask for too much too soon. They drain our energy after interaction and only show up when they need something. These are the people we have to always be looking at. Why? Because these are the ones who are always out to seek. These are the leeches. These are the ones who want to manipulate, destroy you. They want to take whatever you have. This is what they do. And they'll go through about it through any way, whether it's sorcery, paying people to destroy you, to lie on you, to cheat on you, to make you look bad, whatever. You destroy your personality, your character, to beat you down, to make you feel like you're nothing. All of these things are there to gaslight you, to be narcissistic to you, to want to have power and control, to want you to chase after them and what they want and what they have, and to it to be all about them and not about you, in the sense of whatever they're getting, they want to get it from you. They want to destroy you. They want what you have. This is the competition thing. People around you who don't want you to have nothing, or want what you have, and they always secretly got issues and odds with you for no reason. There's no reason to have one, but they just finding, coming up with ways. This is what you got to be careful. Now, your relationship rules, non-negotiable. Slow access. 1, don't reveal. 2, personal struggles, finances, goals too quickly. Watch consistency. Words don't matter. Patterns do. 3, emotional check. After being around someone, do I feel stronger or drained? Our work career strategy. Our Gaza. Danger zone at work. Getting too comfortable and letting your guard down. Trusting the wrong people and losing discipline because nothing's happened. Now, what I normally do is I give people chances, and then once I see that they're doing like Delilah, I stop dealing with them. I ain't got to argue. I don't got to fuss. I'll just not deal with you the way that I used to. Cordial, respectful, but I don't have to deal with you like personal space. Unless it's about work, we don't have to deal, because I know how to feed people with a long-handed spoon. I don't have to be, intertwined with you like that. I don't. Now, I try to be cordial, I try to be there, but if that's not the case, I don't make or force anything. I leave it alone. I walk away from it. Once I see that I'm becoming the issue, the problem, I tell people all the time, there's one way for you to figure out what's really going on. When you step away and it's all about you, or if they were already having issues or whatever was already going on and you just happen to come there, they want to make it all about you. Understand something, that is them problem. They've been had those issues. They want to blame, put it on other people. They want to make themselves look like victims, all these type of... I don't have time for those games. I don't play those games. If I did something, I did something. If I didn't, I didn't. I'm not about to sit here and go back and forth. We're not about to do all of that. And if that's the case, I just remove myself. So this is in any area of your life. It could be a spouse, it could be your children, it could be whatever. So in your security role is literal watchfulness, awareness, discipline. This is spiritual and practical alignment. Now, work update on shift. Stay consistent even when it's quiet. Treat every moment like it matters. Don't get sloppy or distracted. Reputation. Be known for reliability, awareness, calm, and control. This protects your career growth and respect. Your financial strategy, because remember, a lot of times you have these places and people want to get you fired. They want to stop playing with people like that, because when it comes to their money, people don't have time for stuff like that, especially in times like these. No one's stopping you from moving forward and making your money or doing certain things. I tell people all the time when I'm at work or wherever, you don't have to like me. I don't have to like you. We have to work together to do what needs to be done. Outside of that, it has nothing. Your personal issues with me are personal. Don't bring them to the job and have it personally at the job. No, you personally see me outside of the building, and then we can handle the personal issues on our personal time. But when I'm at work, the personal is not personal. This is business. This is my place of making my money. This is how I pay my bills and live my life. Don't play with people with that. And then they wonder why people act crazy and do certain things, because you don't know how to leave people alone. And it is for no reason. A lot of times they'll pick on people who are not even doing anything. And that's usually the case. There's so much other stuff going on, but they're not worried about that. They want to worry about, and that's when you know it's evil, it's demonic, it's them, that evil, wicked spirits they have in their hearts. Stuff they need to be healed from themselves. So, financial health, Delilah traps. Your financial strategy, spending to feel better, emotional spending. Can't be doing that. Helping the wrong people financially. Gotta pay attention to this too, because I told you about the sowing into people. That is not good ground. Trusting people with money too fast. Exactly. You can't sow into bad ground, because you will not reap a harvest. You're not gonna reap anything back from it. And when I say that, I'm talking about, whenever we're sowing, we want the crop to grow. If we're sowing, it could be a seed of love. It could be a seed of finances. It could be a seed of encouragement. It could be whatever type of a seed. But when you're sowing it, it doesn't have to be financial. It does not always have to be whatever it is you're sowing. You want it to come back, and you want it to come back more than what you gave. That's what this is all about. Your harvest. You have seed time and harvest. And you go through different seasons. And when it's time for you to reap your harvest, you don't want it choked out. You don't want it destroyed. Why? Because you sowed into bad ground. So you got to check yourself, the sower, check the seed, and check the ground. So that's people, places, and things. Now your financial rules. Protect your money like your strength. Right, because you have to earn it. Not everyone deserves access. Ask before spending. Is this helping my future or just feeding a feeling? Watch people and their money mix. If someone pressures you financially, a lot of times people don't spend money wisely. They waste a lot. Your emotional patterns is important. They don't have no discipline. They don't know how to live beneath their means. Samson's emotional weaknesses is driven by attraction and feeling. Ignore it logically and repeatedly. So we got to watch our red flags. When people are showing us who they are, we have to believe them. We cannot continue to sweep these things under the rug and act like this is not who they are showing us that they are. This is actually who they are. Do not continue to change them. This is who they are. This is who they are. Believe them. How this shows up today: staying in situations too long, giving chances too long. Yeah, but patterns already consistently repeated. Confusing intention with care. A lot of people are not, they're alone, and they're not emotionally, able. They're not haven't had enough love, and this is how this, become victims. You don't want to be victims. You don't want to be prey. P-R-E-Y. People preying on you all the time. Your emotional strength plan rule. If you have a question that repeatedly, it's already a problem. Pause. Habit. Before any emotional decision, wait 24 hours. Reassess it calmly. 6. Your spiritual strategy. Your real power. Key truth for you. Your hair. The discipline, consistency, and connection to God. Not just belief, but routine. Your simple daily system, 10 minutes a day, quiet time, reflect. Where did I feel strong today? Where did I feel weak? Weekly reset, what patterns keep repeating and what do I need to cut off? When you mess up, because everyone does, don't do what Samson did early. Ignore it and keep going. Do what he did at the end. Recognize it, pray honestly, and reset it. Your personal life and patterns, real talk. If we need not careful, strong at work, weak in relationships, emotionally led decisions, and gradually burn out. You don't want to do these things. So now we apply this way: strong at work, disciplined in life, clear in relationships, stable emotionally, and growing spiritually. Remember, consistency is always the case, because it's not about the big areas or big things. It's about doing the small things consistently. That's where you, like ants, they do what they do. Your custom rules, remember these. Not everyone deserves access to you. Just because you're strong doesn't mean you're safe. Patterns don't lie, so pay attention early. Your discipline equals your power, but you can always recover, but don't wait until it collapses. Final person messages for you. You're already in position where awareness is your job, discipline is required, protection is the mission. Judges are telling you apply that same mindset to your life, not just your jobs. So when we look at this, we want to look at these, paying attention in every aspect of our life, whether it's with our spouses, with our family, with our children, with our friends, with our jobs, co-workers, whatever aspect of your life, you need to be paying attention. What's going on mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and spiritually? What is your body, your mind? What is God showing you, telling you throughout the patterns of these people, places, and things of where you are? And that's going to let you know what you need to do in preparation moving forward for yourself, whether it's changing positions, whether it's staying, whether it's going somewhere else, whether it's growing in the position, going somewhere else, meaning moving forward. Whatever that may be, or going back to school, or doing some other things, these are things we need to be paying attention to. So I hope that this was a blessing. Like I said, when it comes to Samson and Delilah, there was a lot of signs. He kept ignoring them. Don't know what the reason was. Maybe he had rejection. Maybe he had some stuff because he was alone. And a lot of times that is the reason. But we need to figure out better ways to manage our time, better ways to do certain things. And we need to have close people that we can go to. Because yes, we want to speak to God daily. But we are made to have natural interactions. So it does become a time where we get lonely, and these are the times when you're weak or you're going through things, and these things tend to happen. So we are bruised and not broken. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This is something that I myself have been dealing with, so I'm gonna work through some of this stuff myself. And I hope that this was a blessing to you. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. I think my Cash App is linked in my bio link if you would like to be a blessing to me in this channel. And this goes back to How do we refresh others? When we first started, refreshing others, meaning pouring into others. And remember, we were talking about this before as pouring one from a full cup. Do not pour from empty cups. That is the one thing we do not do. We pour from full cups. When God fills us, what's in our cup is for us, and what overflows is for others. This is why we're supposed to be living the abundant life, the overflow life, where our harvest is coming in, we're getting them. They're bringing more yield, meaning whatever we sowed is coming in more than what we sowed. And this is how this works with the good and bad. So when we look at refreshing others, we want to be able to refresh them from a place of we are already full, not giving out of our drainage, out of our lack. That is not a good way, because you'll pour until you're empty. Then you'll be angry, you'll be bitter, and all of these things, have resentment. And then you'll be sitting there looking crazy. I myself am learning this. Why? Because I had did this for a long period of time. And a lot of time it's because you've been rejected, you haven't been loved properly, all these things that have happened. And so you don't love yourself in all of these ways, and this is what is happening. You depend and rely on others to love you and to treat you right, and that's going to be your biggest downfall. People, places, and things will not do that. They will never love you the way God will. They will never give that to you. Thinking and waiting on that is a mission of failure. God tells you not to trust in people, places, and things, but only in Him. So we must pay attention to these things. Also, like I said, we want to be able to bless, to be a blessing. So this is always the case. But we got to know when, where, and how, because you're not called to any and everybody. Some people are your assignment, and this is where you're working with God, and He's going to show you who to go to, and when to be there, and how to operate, and when not to. And this is the perfect example of walking with the Spirit or walking in the Spirit or not, because that's what's going to align you and put you in the right places, because that's where you're going to grow and flourish. Because if not, you're just going to be working, but you're not going to see what you're supposed to be receiving from your assignment, your purpose, the fulfillment of it, the way you should be when you're not walking with the Lord. So, like I said, I hope this message was a blessing to you guys. We are bruised and not broken. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And be blessed in Jesus' name. Amen.